So, welcome back. We have been discussing on the biochemical origin of life, the hypothesis which was put forward by Oparin and Haldane. And we saw how the complex organic molecules were formed in the primitive oceans, how the rain was formed, how the different molecules were formed, and from there to simple organic molecules, and the simple organic molecules reacting between among themselves to form the complex organic molecules by way of polymerization. And the same time, nucleic acids and nucleoproteins were formed, which resulted in the formation of a primitive organic soup, isn't it? That is what we had discussed. And the next was the formation of coacervates. According to Oparin, the macromolecules, what do you call the complex or organic molecules? Okay, the macromolecules in the organic soup in the ocean had the tendency of aggregation or coming together, forming groups and adhering to each other, and precipitation in the primitive oceans. And this led to the formation of colloidal particles of organic molecules. And these organic materials, the colloidal particles, were named as coacervates by Oparin. Okay, the coacervates. Oparin named it as coacervates, and the formation of coacervates, the process was referred as coacervation. Coacervates may have contained proteins of different types, nucleoproteins, and other organic and inorganic molecules in various combinations. And they may have appeared as distinct bodies, which instead of mixing with the surrounding watery medium, may have remained suspended in it. Okay, so these coacervates may have remained suspended in the primitive ocean. Okay, instead of getting mixed up in the water. This may have made possible selective absorption and accumulation of certain substances within these colloidal particles and from the surrounding medium. So these coacervates may have absorbed certain substances from the surrounding medium, may have aggregated or may have accumulated those substances inside them. And perhaps the first proteins may have aggregated to form the what you call the coacervate droplets, and that was what hypothesized by Oparin. Since some proteins already we have already mentioned that some proteins behaved as enzymes, they had helped in what you call speeding up the rate of formation of certain specific molecules. So it is believed that some protein behaved as enzymes and helped as catalysts for certain reactions. This particular property could also, or this particular process may have also occurred independently inside these coacervates. However, these coacervate droplets were quite unstable structures. Hence, they cannot be used as a model for the first formed living cell. Okay, so but Oparin considered them as sole living molecules which favored the formation of cells in the later years. At the same time, Fox in 1965 used the term microspheres to refer to such organized organic droplets because they appeared as a tiny sphere-shaped bodies similar to certain bacteria. In one of his experiments conducted by Fox, he found these molecules, this what you call aggregation of these complex organic molecules in the form of sphere-shaped bodies, and hence he referred it as microspheres. And according to Fox, microspheres exhibited some of the properties of cells, like the presence of a membrane, a double-layered membrane, capacity for growth, the ability to move, and also the what you call ability to divide by way of fission. So unlike coacervates, proteinoid microspheres were found to be quite stable structures. But microspheres are not considered as cells, they are not cells, nor are they living. But perhaps they indicate how the first living cell, the protocell, may have formed in the primitive oceans. So the formation of microspheres through various experiments conducted by Fox, the formation of microspheres uh, almost a little more stabler entity Even though it is not considered to be a completely formed living cell, microspheres may have later led to the formation or it may be like the formation of microspheres that could have indicated how the first formed cells may have formed in the primitive oceans. Okay, now so how the protocells or the first formed cells, first living cells formed. Probably the most difficult step in the origin of life could have been the development or the creation of the first living cell from the various organic compounds found in the primitive oceans. And it is found that the protocell or the protobiont or the first living cell, or even it is otherwise known as pre-cell, okay, it was spherical and enveloped by a double layered membrane but devoid of any nucleus. Its formation could have occurred spontaneously by combining various organic compounds in such a way as to produce a stable integrated chemical system which was capable of replicating itself. Okay, using energy, it could have been capable of replicating or dividing by way of fission. But this step is not completely answered, and the various mechanisms, the various properties which was shown by protocell, one is obviously it was anaerobic. That is, since there was no free oxygen during the time, obviously the first living cell had to be anaerobic. It was the atmosphere was rich in hydrogen but devoid of free oxygen. So a living cell could survive only if it was anaerobic. Hence, they must have been able to obtain energy by way of fermentation of organic compounds that were found in the primitive sea. Second feature could be that protocells must have been fed heterotrophically on the organic soup surrounding it. So they were not equipped to synthesize organic molecules autotrophically. So the first living cell were not autotrophic, they could have been heterotrophic. Okay, so how they had done it, whether it is by pinocytosis or like ingestion of solid particles by phagocytosis, that all remain unanswered. Obviously, again, one another thing is we saw that these where this could replicate itself, isn't it? So the it must have been able to, these protocells must have been able to reproduce itself by the simple asexual process, by replication of macromolecules or by fission or by budding. Okay, so that is what the protocell like is how it could have behaved in the primitive oceans. That is how it has been explained in the hypothesis. Now, in the course of time, the sugars and amino acids which were a part of the first cell, or which resulted in the formation of the first cell, became scarce, became reduced, the amount reduced in the ocean. Whereas carbon dioxide became abundant in the atmosphere due to the release of carbon dioxide by way of fermentation process. So presumably at this stage, chlorophyll molecules may have developed. Okay, and this enabled some of these protocells to start photosynthesizing. They could capture the solar energy, manufacture their own organic material from carbon dioxide and water. So they started to photosynthesize. So in other words, a heterotrophic protocell became an autotrophic cell. Simultaneously, the mechanism for the synthesis of both proteins and nucleic acids got internalized. So these cells also started to produce its own proteins and nucleic acids. So, but a genetic system involving nucleic acids as molecules of stored information for making specific proteins were not formed during that time. It could have been added at a later time. Okay, so protocells developed into a fully fledged living cell by the what you call starting up of the photosynthetic property. Okay, so the later during the time, what happened is atmosphere came to contain large amounts of free oxygen due to the process of what you call photosynthesis, and this made possible the evolution of aerobic organisms. So both autotrophic plants and heterotrophic organisms came into being once the photosynthesis started to have triggered up. Okay, so here you can see a pictorial representation. So the clouds actually earlier the primitive atmosphere were contained ammonia, what you call methane, water vapor, and hydrogen, isn't it? And later, when the Earth started to cool off, the water vapor got liquefied. It came down as rain. The first ocean was formed, right? And during the rain, what happened is the ammonia and methane in the air, it got mixed up with water. It was also taken along into the ocean. So these molecules came into the oceans, and these molecules, they collided with each other and formed various molecules in different combinations, and it resulted in the formation of simple organic molecules like amino acids, glycerol, fatty acids, nitrogenous bases, sugars, the monosaccharides, etc. And these simpler organic molecules further reacted by way of condensation process to result in the formation of polysaccharides, proteins, lipids, nucleotides, and then these nucleotides gave rise to what you call nucleic acid. The nucleotides combined with proteins to form the nucleoproteins, and that's resulted in the formation of the major what you call organic molecules. And these organic molecules later what you call formed colloidal particles, aggregated to form colloidal particles, which was named as coacervates, and that triggered the biological evolution. Okay, so this is a sequence which this is a pictorial representation of the whole hypothesis with forward by Oparin and Haldane. Okay, so these were the steps. Free atoms developed in the free gaseous atoms, actually molecules developed in the primitive atmosphere, resulted in the formation of inorganic molecules like water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, and then these led to the formation of simple organic molecules and further into the complex organic molecules. And these complex organic molecules, they aggregated to form the coacervates, which resulted in the formation of first living cell, the protobiont. And from there, the primitive cells, the living cells, which actually could what you call use up the energy, synthesize energy, can divide or replicate itself. So all those what you call developed. And by this time what happened is, you can see during these changes which happened in like thousands of millions of years, a reducing atmosphere during this time slowly and slowly changed into oxidizing atmosphere, where oxygen was enough to sustain aerobic mode of life. Okay, so this is all about the biochemical origin of life. Fine. So in the two presentations, we have been discussing about the biochemical origin of life, and we saw how Oparin and Haldane put forward, hypothesized the various steps in the origin of life on Earth, and a new term coacervates and protobionts were introduced by them at various occasions. So this is all about the biochemical origin of life. Now, there have been various experimental evidences to support the biochemical origin of life, and this will be discussed in the next presentation. Okay, so the experimental evidence are only when because these are all hypotheses. It has to be what you call provided evidence to support the hypothesis, even though all the earlier hypotheses and theories were discarded. But this biochemical origin of life, experimentally, it was proved by Urim and Miller experiment. Okay, so that we'll discuss in the next presentation. Right? Thank you.